Hey, good Thursday, everybody. Welcome back. Great to see you. And I'm very excited for today's video because we finally get to talk about one of my favorite things to discuss here on the channel, and that is winter weather. To be quite honest, I think me and everyone else is tired of talking about these destructive hurricanes that we've been dealing with over the past couple of weeks and ready to kind of shift gears. Now, hurricane season is not completely over. We do still have a couple more weeks that we need to monitor the tropics before things kind of really simmer down for good. But it does look like we're going to finally get and at least a little bit of a lull with no storm activity expected to impact anybody over at least the next week, probably really within the next 10 days. Hopefully. So again, we'll look forward to that. But yeah, we're going to talk about some winter weather. We're going to talk about a big time cool down. Also going to give you an update on the northern light potential tonight across parts of the country. So really a big time shift from yesterday again, which was unfortunately just insane through the state of Florida. We had, I've never seen in my life that many tornadoes and that many violent looking tornadoes out of a tropical system. I mean, it was truly a tornado outbreak over the Florida Peninsula yesterday, but luckily, again, today, Milton is moving on out of here, and we can really begin that cleanup process. All right, so again, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Like the video, let me know where you're watching from, and let me know if you are ready for winter like I am, or at least some winter weather here going throughout the next couple of weeks. Again, personally, I'm very excited. I love talking about winter weather. Also, let me know if you're going to try to go out and see the northern lights tonight, and I'll tell you who has a shot at it here in just a moment. But with that said, let's go ahead and dive on into things. All right. Current satellite imagery, this is what is left of Hurricane Milton. It is now off the coast of Florida, and the storm moved a good 4 to 6 hours quicker than it looked like it would yesterday. So that is good news for us. Maybe not so good news it came in a little sooner yesterday, but that also means it's moving out sooner. So that is the good news. Also, the backside of the storm is really lacking any real precipitation. So again, things have pretty much already cleared out over the state of Florida outside of some leftover gusty winds as that storm system kind of works along or south of the southeast coastline. And luckily, Milton is not going to impact the southeast at all. Outside of a couple areas of gusty winds offshore today of portions of South Carolina and Georgia, and maybe a little bit of storm surge left over. But again, things are really going to get quite or just a lot better throughout the day. Other than that, we do still have this leftover kind of occluded low pressure over portions of Canada. That will bring some unsettled weather to portions of the Northeast today. You can see that cloud cover up there kind of rotating in. We also have some more disturbed weather out west, which could bring a couple showers, and we'll talk about that as well. But overall, a pretty quiet day for many of us here throughout the lower 48. All right, current radar imagery, again, I mean, there's really just not a lot happening right now outside of what was Milton. Again, maybe a couple showers getting into the Carolina coastline from, we'll say, Wilmington on south through kind of Beaufort, South Carolina. But again, even if it is raining, nothing, out of the usual. It's not very heavy rain. It's not very windy. And again, this is kind of moving away anyway. So by the time you're watching this, that is probably already gone. All right, watches, warnings, and advisories. We can see that, sorry, I'm going all over the place with different maps. Watches, warnings, and advisories today, really, again, not a whole lot happening. We do have a lot of frost advisories and even some freeze warnings up here for the Northeast. Again, we've had some pretty cool evenings, so waking up in the morning, we've been in frost territory or freeze territory in the higher terrains up here. Again, a sign of things to come, and it's going to only get colder from here next week. And again, that's going to be the big thing we talk about, this big time cold shot that's on the way that could even bring the first snow of the year to some folks. And again, we'll touch on that here soon. Now, what's left over from Milton, we do actually have some wind advisories today through the Midlands of South Carolina, down through portions of southeast Georgia and into the panhandle of Florida. Again, on the backside of the storm, the pressure gradient is still pretty tight here, and we have a pretty strong bear clinic zone ongoing as well, just meaning we're dealing with cold air here and very warm air into the storm. So again, that tightens the pressure gradient, that increases the winds. So not necessarily tropical storm related from Valdosta up to Athens, or excuse me, up to Augusta rather, and into Columbia and back down towards even the coast. but more of just a bear clinic zone of wind. So watching out for that. But again, the storm pulling away, it is still a Category 1 storm hurricane, though. It stayed a hurricane throughout the entire state of Florida as it tracked here just south of Tampa and then really just south and along the I-4 corridor. Again, that track luckily spared Tampa from the worst of the surge, but unfortunately, as I mentioned in the video, whoever was north of the storm was going to get the worst of the wind, and that's exactly what happened through the very highly populated I-4 corridor. So, it's good that Tampa itself was able to avoid the surge, but still a big-time storm that's going to be remembered for a while in that region due to some of the wind impacts and even some of the flooding impacts that we saw from all the rain. All right, so current view over the country, kind of what is it looking like today? Well, here's our shot of cold air from earlier this week. This is kind of slowly retreating. You'll notice some of these blues still left over down here along the East Coast, but what is building behind it is this big ridge of high pressure and warmer temperatures. And unfortunately for us cool weather fans, well, I say unfortunately, it's really kind of fortunate actually. As bad as that looks, it actually is going to get beaten down pretty quickly here by another shot of cold air potentially going into this weekend, and then an even bigger shot early next week. So we're watching for that here, and we will continue to update you on that, and that's really what the rest of the video will be about. All right, now let's talk about geomagnetic storming. And I'll go ahead and preface this by saying I am not an expert in the space weather department. Now, I know more probably than your average Joe, just because, I'm do the whole meteorology thing. This is definitely related, and I've read up on it a little bit and all. But basically, the main thing to know tonight is yes, there is a chance at seeing the aurora. There's also a chance at maybe some sort of communications issues due to the solar storm. Again, oftentimes can affect radio waves and things kind of along that line. But in terms of the aurora, that's kind of the difficult part to forecast here. It's not like a snowstorm where you can see it, well ahead of time, or a hurricane or anything like that. It's really more like a tornado. It's more like forecasting tornadoes. You know that there's going to be severe weather, but who exactly sees a tornado? It's kind of similar here with the aurora. Now, what we do know is the sun shot off a big-time solar flare, a very strong one that is going to travel towards Earth and likely make impact. In fact, it may have already made impact over portions of the country. And by tonight, depending on conditions, we could have overhead aurora visible through all of Canada, really, and down into kind of this line northbound. So this is where it could be viewable to the naked eye. Now, is this going to be May 10th all over again? Probably not. They're very different setups, but this is still a very strong solar flare that is capable of producing aurora quite far south. So this kind of green line you see here, well, if I could draw it better, sorry, I'll kind of outline here in the pinkish color. That is where it is possible to view the aurora with a camera or some kind of long exposure device. And again, then all of the shaded area is where it could be possible to view with the naked eye. So this could get as far south again as places like Charlotte, Nashville, Oklahoma City, Denver, down into Nevada and California. Could potentially see the aurora with the naked eye at some point tonight. Now, another thing I will add is substorms, or just kind of extra oomph, if you will, of energy that occurs during the storm is very important for this to happen. So it's very possible that when the sun sets, the aurora is going crazy and then dies down, or it's possible at sunset that there's nothing, but then it picks up later in the night. So it's one of those things you have to be patient with if you really want to see it. Obviously, the second that the sun is down and the sky is dark, go ahead and just be ready for the potential. But you might have to kind of come back every now and then and see if it is flaring back up. And I can tell you that from firsthand experience when we saw it back in May. I was on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It started insane. And then it kind of died down a little bit. It was still viewable really all night, but died down a little bit and then got crazy again at about 2 in the morning. It could be a similar setup. That's just how the aurora works. But again, hopefully you do go out there and see it. And if you do, let me know. I think I'm going to try to as well. I have my final midterm tonight at 5 or 4 or something like that. I should probably check. But after that, then I will be out in aurora chasing mode. So again, hopefully we all see something. Hopefully we get it good. And that would be quite the treat for everybody. All right, now to see it, obviously you're going to want a lack of cloud cover. So who's going to be in the best boat tonight? Well, I think the best viewing conditions for the possibility of seeing the aurora will be kind of really over the Ohio River Valley, the Tennessee River Valley, down through the mid-Atlantic and even southern New England. Some more troublesome places, the Northeast, specifically New England itself, up into Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, we could be dodging some clouds. Also over portions of the Midwest from Wisconsin down out through Minnesota, through the Dakotas, and back down into the Rockies. Again, we saw that on satellite loop this morning. We've kind of got this big jet extension up into this region that is bringing some cloud cover. But again, if you're down into this region from the Carolinas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, back through Missouri, Kansas, it looks pretty good tonight for a viewing potential. So I definitely recommend going out and trying to see it. All right. Let's see if I can actually click the right button here. Okay, let's very briefly talk about what's up on the horizon for the next day or two, and then we will dive into the long run. So again, this really is not going to take long to get through this part of the video. Forecast for today, again, Milton pulling away, rain pulling away. Could see some showers up into Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. As I mentioned, we do have a little bit of a disturbance kind of swinging on through out of Canada that could bring some shower activity. Either way, it's going to be pretty cloudy and dreary. Outside of that, this is tomorrow morning, nothing. Tomorrow afternoon, nothing. Well, I will add maybe a little bit of rain down into Florida, but again, more just showers than anything. Nothing severe expected out of that. And that's kind of the theme really here through the rest of the work week before we get into the weekend. And you'll notice what is the start of our next pattern change, kind of diving down into Canada. And that's round 1 of 2, if you will. And again, we'll break all that down here in just a second. But what's important, next 48 hours, really not a whole lot happening here in the east. Out west, a similar story. Again, we do have a lot of cloud cover. And we could even see a couple showers this afternoon through portions of the northwest, Montana, through Idaho. You'll notice some of those picking up this afternoon. Or excuse me, this is tonight into tomorrow morning. And then by the time we get into tomorrow afternoon, again, maybe some showers out here along the west coast as we do have a storm system kind of bringing some Pacific moisture. But again, the real story is just that there's not anything significant occurring in the weather and really anywhere in the lower 48 over the next 48 hours. Now that's going to change though. So let's go ahead and break this down, this big time pattern change. We'll pick this up on Saturday morning. Again, we do have a little bit of a disturbance that kind of swings down through the northeast. And what's driving this is we do have a little bit of a trough, this kind of big long wave trough with a bit of a short wave embedded into it. Again, some cold air kind of swinging on down towards the northeast that is going to fire up some showers here. You'll notice this kind of area of rain there through the Hudson Bay and getting down into eastern Canada that will likely clip the northeast going into this weekend, Saturday afternoon, but clears out pretty quickly. Now, that will bring one shot of cold air. Here comes the next shot. So you'll notice another troughing feature showing up. This is overnight Saturday into Sunday. Here, kind of up into Canada, we've got a whole bunch of cold air locked away. And what happens is that begins to slide southward. It begins to become more of a trough. And because of that, we get low pressure to develop here right along the Great Lakes and ride this boundary of cold air. So what does that tell me? Well, that tells me we're going to have the chance of some snowfall, potentially measurable snow outside of or Canada and into the United States here come early next week. So this is Sunday afternoon. You'll notice there's that storm. And behind it, all of this cold air shows up, and eventually the two work in tandem. And we've got a big band of snowfall here on the northern side of our 540 line, and then some rain here on the warmer side of the system going into early next week. This is Monday. You see that snow, and then on the backside, again, look at this very heavy snow up into Canada, bringing in a lot of cold air, bringing in even some snow into potentially the northeastern United States. Also, all this cold air going to cross over the Great Lakes and potentially bring some lake effect precipitation, including potentially lake effect snow early next week. And then that's not the end of it. I mean, look at how far south this dives. I mean, this freezing isotherm gets all the way down into the upstate of South Carolina. When I say freezing, I mean the column from the surface up about halfway through the atmosphere in terms of mass has an average temperature around 32 degrees or 0 degrees Celsius. And then that kind of swings on through, and we're locked in with cold air for a while. But again, it's kind of a 1-2 punch for the snow chance. Here's punch one, that big storm system up into the northeast. Here's punch two, a big block of cold air running right over the Great Lakes. And then you see some of this lake effect snow picking up by the middle of the week. So it's an interesting setup, and it's getting about that time of the year that this becomes more believable. So let's dive into this. What are the chances of some snow here into portions of the interior Northeast this coming weekend? All right, here we go. This is Sunday afternoon. This is our 850 millibar temperature, so not far up above our head, about a kilometer and a half. The places you see the light blue line and below, those are areas that are at or below freezing. So generally speaking, we would have some sort of frozen precipitation, likely in this case snow. It'll be rain or snow falling from wherever the cloud is all the way down to at least 850 millibars, which again would give it the chance to make it to the surface as freezing precipitation. All right, here we go. Here's that blue isotherm. You'll notice here's our storm beginning to crank up. This is Monday morning. And here's what's going to be very important. We'll talk about this in a second. Where is the position of this storm? On this model, on the GFS operational run, it kind of rides right along the Canada-US border. That would keep most of the snow into Canada. But I'll show you in a second, there's a chance it's further south, then that could bring a heavier swath of snow into the United States. But again, it's really going to depend what side of this low pressure are you on. That's going to determine your advection type. Again, cold air on the backside, our warm conveyor belt here on the easterly side. And here we go. So all that cold air funnels in, and on the backside, we get this big rush of cold air right over the Great Lakes. So at this point, again, this is chance one of snow. Here's the low pressure. Do we still have some precipitation here on the backside? That could bring some snow. If not, then we get another chance kind of later on in the week as this cold air really funnels in. And we get kind of another shot of it right over the Great Lakes. This could bring another chance of snow, this time lake effect, kind of in the Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. Now, as I mentioned, what's going to be very important is the placement of this low pressure. So here we go, Sunday afternoon. Most members keep this kind of right near the Detroit area. But as we move this ahead into time, you'll notice there's a pretty big spread. Some members, again, keep this kind of near where the operational run is. That would keep most of the snow, unfortunately, into Canada. But we do have a pretty good clustering of members here that are much further south. And that could bring the snow potential, into the interior Northeast, especially into these higher elevations, where we could actually begin to accumulate some snowfall here by early next week, and then that kind of swings on out of here. And again, as I mentioned, later in the week, a lake effect snow precipitation type chance thing. I don't know why I worded it like that, but I did, picks up. So what are the chances of snow? This is the chance of at least an inch of snow falling within a 24-hour time frame from our ensembles. We'll start with the GFS. And this is Sunday afternoon. You'll notice not a lot going on, but we move this ahead. This is overnight Sunday. Look at Monday morning and Monday afternoon and evening. And then this is overnight Monday into Tuesday. We've got more than a 50% chance of seeing accumulating snowfall here from upstate New York into northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and even up into portions of Maine close to the Canadian border. And that hangs around for a while. And then we get another boost of snow chances due to lake effect precipitation during the middle of the week down here through Pennsylvania, even into southern New York State. And look at this, even down into the mountains of West Virginia, having a chance at some snow falling due to this shot of cold air by the middle of next week. And then snow chances fade about a week or so from now. All right, the European, is it just as excited? Well, unfortunately, not so much. It does show the chance here. This is, again, overnight Monday into Tuesday, especially into the higher terrains of New York State through the upstate into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, but just much lower chances of accumulating snowfall here from the European model. And then, again, doesn't even really like the lake effect snow chance as much, although there are some chances down here, you'll notice, of some accumulating snowfall. All right, so this is the mean of snow from the GFS, and I'll go ahead and tell you, it is still fall, so this is going to be lower than this. We're going to not have quite as good of ratios, so I would go ahead and cut all of this in half. But nonetheless, you get the point. We could see accumulating snowfall again into upstate New York, the northern mountains of Vermont, New Hampshire, and here into portions of Maine, and then potentially some lake effect precipitation in the form of snow back down through southern New York State, down through northern Pennsylvania, and into the mountains of West Virginia. Not out of the question here by the time we get through the middle of next week. As I mentioned, though, the European, not nearly as excited. Look at these snowfall totals. Yeah, not great, but still showing up. Again, you'll notice the best chance, I think, for any type of accumulating snowfall is going to be into this region of upstate New York through the mountains into Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and then into Canada close to the Canadian border is going to have the best chance at any sort of accumulating snowfall. All right, snow is not the only thing to talk about here, though. It is going to get cold no matter what. So we take a look at this front and how it kind of evolves. This is this Friday, so tomorrow afternoon. Not a whole lot going on. In fact, pretty warm, but you'll notice here is our block of cold air up into Canada, and it is very quickly going to move south. Again, there's our first punch of cold air up into Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont kind of this weekend. But then that second shot of cold air moves on in. And again, this is that boundary. Look at this. And we're going to have low pressure along this boundary. So wherever that boundary sets up, that's going to decide where we get snowfall. If it stays here, most of the snow up into Canada. If it moves south a little bit and that boundary's down here, then we could get more snow, kind of like the GFS ensemble showed, with some snowfall into the interior northeast. Either way, though, look at all this blue air diving southward. This is Tuesday afternoon. Everyone just about east of the Mississippi here is getting in on well below average temperatures. And that continues through the week. That blue hangs around, excuse me. This is into Wednesday, very chilly morning Tuesday likely, even chilly afternoon Wednesday. And then that hangs around before likely later on in the week. Some ridging tries to build back in and we warm back up. All right, temperature anomaly here. I'll go ahead and just swing this ahead. There's that first shot of blue that hits the northeast. That is Saturday into Sunday, but here's that bigger shot of cold air. And let's pause this Monday afternoon. Potentially, 10 to 20 degrees below what we should be this time of year into the northeast. And then it only goes downhill from there by Tuesday. This is Tuesday morning into the afternoon. Actually, we'll go Tuesday afternoon here. Again, we're talking 10 to 20 degrees below average temperatures for just about everyone here east of the Mississippi River, especially through the Carolinas, up through the Northeast, and even down into the Ohio and Tennessee River Valley. It's going to start to feel a lot more like fall, even almost like winter potentially for some of these morning temperatures. And that cold air hangs around, really oozes south, even gets all the way down into Florida by Wednesday afternoon. This is Thursday afternoon. Unfortunately, you see that warm air coming back from the west. And then by the time we get into next weekend, potentially another warm up on the way. All right, so potential temperatures, these are next Tuesday high temperatures, only getting up potentially into the 40s and 50s through the Northeast, 60s and 50s for high temperatures through the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys. But what is more interesting are the morning lows. Look at this. We could get down to freezing through much of the Northeast, into the mountains of the Carolinas, into the Virginias, and then below freezing morning lows, likely even up into the Midwest. So winter is on the way. It is something I'm super excited to talk about. And again, even with this cold shot, potential for some snow, even if it's not very impactful, it would still be snow falling in October. So hopefully that's something that we can continue to talk about here on the horizon. Alrighty, folks, again, a reminder, potential Northern Lights event tonight, so go out and see it if you can. Not everyone is going to see it. Again, it's a tough thing to forecast, but there is a high potential for it compared to an average night. So definitely give it a shot. With that said, y'all have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Enjoy it out there. Stay safe, and I'll see you all tomorrow.